The first time I saw her, I almost walked away. Not because she was ugly. Not because she was boring. But because my whole body froze, like my heart knew something big was about to happen, and I was scared of it. It was supposed to be a joke. A silly truth or dare date my friends forced on me. Yet there I was, standing outside a small coffee shop on a rainy Friday night, my hands shaking, staring at a girl I had never met before, and somehow feeling like my life was about to split into two parts. Before her and after her. She looked up from her phone, our eyes met, and in that moment, everything inside me screamed, "Turn around, this is too much." But my feet did not move. And just before she smiled and said my name, something happened that made my chest tighten so hard I could barely breathe. I didn't know yet that this girl, this stranger from a stupid game, was about to change everything I believed about love, pain, and kindness. And I didn't know yet that this night would end in a way I could never forget. But let me go back, because none of this started at the coffee shop. It started with a game. Before I continue, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? New York, Texas, California, or somewhere else in the US? Tell me in your mind or in the comments, because I always like to know where my story reaches. Now let me tell you who I am. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm a 28-year-old white guy, born and raised in a small town in Ohio. I am not rich. I am not famous. I am just a normal guy who works in a small tech support office, fixes computers for angry people, drinks too much coffee, and laughs too loud when I am nervous. I used to think my life was simple. Wake up, go to work, come home tired, scroll my phone, sleep. That was my life for years. I had friends, yes, but I never had love that stayed. Let me introduce them. First, there is Mark Reynolds, my best friend since high school. Mark is tall, loud, and always smiling like he knows something funny you don't. He works in sales and talks like he could sell water to a fish. Then there is Jason Miller, quiet, calm, and always thinking. Jason is the type who listens more than he talks. He works as a gym trainer and is built like a superhero, but he has the softest heart. And then there is Ryan Cole, the joker of our group. Short, fast-talking, always cracking jokes even in serious moments. Ryan works as a bartender and knows everybody in town. These three guys were my family. They knew everything about me. They knew how my last relationship ended. It was 2 years ago. I dated a girl named Laura for almost 3 years. I loved her deeply. But one day, I found out she had been seeing another man behind my back. It broke something in me. After that, I stopped trusting easily. I stopped trying. I told myself love is not for me anymore. I focused on work. I stayed quiet. I avoided anything that felt like hope. My friends noticed. They always said, "Ethan, you can't live like this forever." But I smiled and said I was fine. Truth was, I was. And that's where the game started. It was Ryan's birthday. We were all at his apartment, sitting around a small table with drinks and snacks. Music was playing softly in the background. Ryan suddenly stood up and said, "All right, boys, tonight we are not leaving here bored. We are playing truth or dare." I laughed and shook my head. "Man, we are not kids anymore." But Mark clapped his hands. "Come on, Ethan, you always say no to fun." Jason looked at me and smiled. "You could use some fun, bro." We started the game. It was silly at first. Truths about favorite food. Dares like doing 10 push-ups or singing badly. Then Ryan looked straight at me with a mischievous smile. Ethan, truth or dare? I sighed. Truth. Ryan leaned forward. Do you still think about Laura? The room went quiet. I looked down and nodded slowly. Sometimes. Mark cleared his throat. Man. Ryan raised his hands. Okay, my bad. Then he smiled again. But next one, you don't get to choose. I raised my eyebrow. What do you mean? He said. You are taking a dare. Before I could speak, Mark pulled out his phone. We already planned this, Mark said, smiling like a devil. My heart started beating faster. What did you plan? Jason said calmly. We signed you up for a truth or dare date. I almost choked. A what? Ryan laughed loudly. You heard him, there's this new thing in town. People meet through a truth or dare challenge. It breaks the ice fast. I stood up. No way. Mark grabbed my shoulder. Ethan, listen, it's just one date. If it's bad, you leave, but you have to try. I shook my head. I am not ready. Jason looked at me gently. You said that 2 years ago too. That hit me. I sat back down slowly. Ryan said, here is the dare, you go on this date tomorrow evening, no excuses. I wanted to say no. I really did. But something inside me whispered, what if this is your chance? So I nodded. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go. They cheered like I just agreed to jump out of a plane. Ryan handed me his phone. Here, her name is Claire Adams, she already agreed. Coffee shop downtown, tomorrow 7 p.m. I stared at the screen. I felt nervous, scared, and a little hopeful. That night I barely slept. My mind kept asking, who is Claire? What if she laughs at me? What if I mess it up? What if I feel nothing? The next day felt slow. At work, I couldn't focus. I kept checking the time. At 6:30 p.m., I stood in front of my mirror. I changed my shirt 3 times. Finally, I picked a simple blue shirt and black jeans. I looked at myself and whispered, just be kind, that's all. I reached the coffee shop at 6:55 p.m. It was raining lightly. The lights inside were warm and soft. I stood outside, my heart pounding. And that is where the story began. She was standing inside, near the counter. Claire Adams. She was not dressed fancy. Just a simple white sweater and jeans. Brown hair tied back loosely. Soft eyes. She looked real. Not perfect, but peaceful. That was when I almost walked away. Because something in her eyes felt deep. Like she had seen pain too. And I was scared of feeling again. But then she looked up. Our eyes met. And then she smiled and said, Ethan. I nodded slowly. Yes, Claire. She stepped closer and said softly, I'm glad you came. And just like that, the joke of a game stopped being a joke. We sat down. At first, it was awkward. We both laughed nervously. Then she said, so truth or dare date, huh? I smiled. Yeah, I didn't even choose this. She laughed. Me too, my friend dared me as well. That made me relax a little. We ordered coffee. We talked about small things. Where she works. She is a children's librarian. That surprised me. She said, I love helping kids find books they love. Something about that touched me. I said, I fix computers, mostly for angry people. She laughed. Little by little, the tension faded. Then she asked softly, "Can I ask you something, truth style?" I nodded. She said, "Why did your friends sign you up for this?" I paused. I thought of Laura, of pain, but I chose honesty. "I stopped believing in love after my last relationship," I said. She nodded slowly. "Sometimes pain makes us close our hearts, even when we don't want to." I looked at her and felt something warm. We sat quietly for a moment. Then she smiled again. "My turn, dare me something." I laughed. "Okay, I dare you to tell me one thing you are afraid of." She hesitated. Then she said, "I'm afraid of being forgotten." That hit me. I said, "You won't be forgotten." She looked surprised, then smiled gently. The night was going well. Too well. And that scared me. Because life never gives good things without testing them. Just as we were starting to feel comfortable, the door of the coffee shop opened. A man walked in. Tall, broad shoulders, sharp eyes. Claire froze. Her smile disappeared. My heart dropped. She whispered, "Oh no." I looked at her. "Do you know him?" She nodded slowly. And before I could ask more, the man walked toward our table and said her name in a voice full of anger. "Claire." That was when I knew this date was about to turn into something much bigger than a game. And that is where I will stop for now. Because what happened next changed everything. And I need you to be ready for it. The man stood right beside our table, his shadow falling across my coffee cup like a dark cloud. Claire did not look at him at first. She stared at her hands, her fingers slowly twisting together. I felt something tighten in my chest. The man spoke again, louder this time. "Claire, we need to talk." People in the coffee shop began to look our way. I cleared my throat and said calmly, "Sir, I think you should leave us alone." He finally looked at me. His eyes were sharp and cold, like he had already judged me in 1 second. "And who are you?" he asked. Before I could answer, Claire spoke softly. "Please, not here." The man sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Of course not here. You always run away from problems, don't you?" That hurt her. I could see it. She stood up slowly and faced him. "Michael," she said quietly, "this is not the place." So his name was Michael. I stood up too, even though my legs felt weak. Michael looked at me again and said, "I don't know who you are, but Claire and I have unfinished business." Claire shook her head. "No, we don't." People were watching now. The baristas stopped, wiping the counter. I leaned closer to Claire and whispered, "Do you want me to say something?" She looked at me and nodded slightly. So I turned to Michael and said, "Sir, whatever this is, tonight is not the time. Please respect her." Michael laughed softly, but it was not a happy laugh. "You don't even know her story, do you?" he said. I felt my stomach turn. Claire closed her eyes like she was tired. Michael looked at her and said, "I'll wait outside, but we will talk. You can't hide forever." Then he walked out into the rain. The door closed behind him. The room felt heavy. Claire slowly sat back down. Her hands were shaking. I sat too, unsure what to say. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said gently, "Do you want to tell me who he is?" She looked up at me, her eyes glossy. "He is my past," she said. I nodded slowly. "You don't have to tell me everything," I said. "Only what you're comfortable with." She took a deep breath. "Michael and I dated for 2 years," she began. "At first he was kind, very kind. He made me feel special. I listened carefully. But slowly, she continued, he started trying to control everything, who I talked to, where I went, what I wore. My chest tightened. She went on. I thought it was love, but it was fear. She looked at me. I left him 6 months ago. I blocked his number. I changed my routine, but he keeps showing up. I felt anger rise in me, but I kept my voice calm. That's not okay, I said. You don't deserve that. She smiled sadly. Thank you for saying that. Outside, the rain fell harder. I glanced at the door, half expecting Michael to burst back in. Do you want to leave? I asked. We can go somewhere else, or I can walk you home. She hesitated, then nodded. I don't want him thinking he can scare me away from living my life. That made me admire her. We paid and stepped outside. The rain hit my face, cold and fresh. Michael was standing across the street, under a broken streetlight. He watched us silently. I felt my body tense. Claire noticed and whispered, Don't worry, he won't touch me in public. Still, I walked a little closer to her, just in case. We walked down the street. Neither of us spoke for a few minutes. Then Claire said softly, I'm sorry, this was not how tonight was supposed to go. I shook my head. You have nothing to be sorry for. We stopped under a bus stop shelter to avoid the rain. She looked at me and said, You didn't leave, most people would. I thought about that. Maybe I'm tired of running too, I replied. She smiled gently. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. We talked some more. About her job. About kids she helped. About how books saved her during hard times. She asked about my work, my friends, my family. For a while, I forgot about Michael. I forgot about fear. I felt peace. But life does not like peace to last too long. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was Ryan. I ignored it. Then it rang again. I sighed and answered. Bro, Ryan said loudly, how is the date? Did you kiss her yet? I covered the phone and laughed nervously. Not like that, I whispered. Claire raised an eyebrow, smiling. I told Ryan I'd call him later and hung up. Claire laughed softly. Your friends seem interesting. I smiled. They mean well, even when they push too hard. She looked at me with a curious expression. And are you glad they pushed you tonight? I paused. I looked at her. Yes, I said honestly. I am. She smiled. But then her smile slowly faded. She looked past me. My heart dropped. Michael was walking toward us. My hands clenched into fists. He stopped a few feet away. You really think you can just walk away from me? He said to Claire. She stood taller this time. I already did. Michael looked at me and said, So you're her new protector now? I did not like his tone. I'm just someone who respects her, I replied. Michael laughed again. You don't even know what she did, he said. Claire stepped forward. Don't, she warned. Michael ignored her and looked at me. She left me when I needed her most, just disappeared. Claire's eyes widened. That's not true, she said. You were hurting me. Michael shook his head. You see, this is what she does. She plays the victim. People were starting to notice again. I raised my voice slightly. That's enough. You are not going to speak to her like that. Michael stared at me. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he smiled slowly. You're brave, he said. Or maybe just stupid. He turned to Claire. You think he will stay when he knows everything about you. Then he walked away into the rain again. Claire stood there shaking. I looked at her and said, "Are you okay?" She nodded, but tears were in her eyes. "I hate that he still has this power over my emotions," she said softly. I gently touched her arm. "He only has the power you give him," I said. "And you are stronger than you think." She looked at me, surprised. "How do you know that?" she asked. "Because you showed up tonight," I said. "Even knowing he might appear." She smiled through her tears. That moment felt like something important. We decided to walk her home. Her apartment was only a few blocks away. The rain had slowed down. The streetlights reflected on the wet road like small stars. We walked quietly. When we reached her building, she stopped and turned to me. "Thank you," she said. "For not leaving, for not judging, for being kind." My heart beat faster. "You're welcome," I replied. There was a pause. Then she said, "I would like to see you again, if you want." I smiled. "I would like that very much." She nodded and stepped inside. I stood there for a moment, smiling like an idiot. Then I walked home. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because of hope. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like my heart was opening again. But life had not finished testing me. The next day, I received a message from an unknown number. It said, "If you really care about Claire, stay away from her, or you will regret it." My chest tightened. I stared at the screen. It had to be Michael. I did not reply, but fear crept back into my heart. I thought about telling Claire, but I didn't want to scare her, so I kept it to myself. Days passed. Claire and I texted every day. Good morning messages, small jokes, stories from work. She made me laugh. She made me feel seen. We planned another date, a simple walk in the park. I arrived early. She came a few minutes later, smiling. The sun was shining. Children were playing nearby. It felt normal. Happy. We walked and talked. She told me about her dream to open a small reading center for kids. I told her about my dream to start my own tech business one day. We sat on a bench. She leaned closer to me. And for the first time, I held her hand. It felt right. Too right. That's when I saw him again. Michael was standing across the park, watching us. My heart sank. Claire noticed too. Her face went pale. I stood up slowly. "He can't keep doing this," I said. Claire shook her head. "Please don't confront him, that makes it worse." But something inside me snapped. I walked toward him. He smiled when he saw me coming. "You're brave again," he said. "Or stupid." I stood firm. "Leave her alone," I said. Michael looked at me with cold eyes. "You have no idea what you're getting into." Then he leaned closer and whispered, "You think this is about love, this is about control." He walked away. I returned to Claire. She looked worried. "Ethan, please be careful," she said. I nodded. But deep inside, I knew something big was coming. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone rang. It was Claire. Her voice was shaking. "Ethan, Michael just came to my apartment." My heart jumped. "Are you okay?" I asked urgently. "Yes," she said, "but he said something scary." I sat up. "What did he say?" She took a breath. "He said, if I can't have you, no one will." My blood ran cold. And that was when I realized This was no longer just a story about a truth or dare date. This was about protecting someone I cared about. And I knew the next thing that happened would change everything. Because love is kind. But love is also brave. And sometimes, love means standing in front of danger. When Claire told me what Michael said, I did not sleep that night. Not even for 1 minute. I kept replaying her words in my head. If I can't have you, no one will. Those words did not sound like jealousy anymore. They sounded like a threat. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of my fan, feeling like the world had shifted again. I wanted to rush to Claire's place right then. But she asked me not to. She said, I don't want him thinking he still controls my life. I'll be okay tonight. I trusted her. But my heart did not rest. The next morning, I called in sick at work. I could not fix computers when my mind was stuck on one face, one voice, one fear. I decided I could not stay silent anymore. I drove to Claire's apartment. She looked tired when she opened the door. Her eyes were red, like she had cried. Without thinking, I gently pulled her into a hug. She froze for a second, then slowly hugged me back. That hug felt like something real. Not rushed, not forced. Just two people holding onto each other in a hard moment. We sat in her small living room. Sunlight came through the window. I said, Claire, we need to take this seriously. Michael is not acting normal anymore. She nodded. I know, she said softly. I've been pretending I'm strong, but I'm scared. That was the first time she said it out loud. And I respected her even more for it. I said, being scared does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. She smiled a little. I continued, you don't have to face this alone. She looked at me. Are you sure you want to be part of this? She asked. It could get messy. I paused. Then I said, life is already messy, but kindness makes it worth it. She looked at me with eyes full of emotion. And in that moment, I knew I cared about her more than I planned to. We decided to go to the police station together. Not to accuse him yet, but to report what was happening. The officer listened carefully. He told Claire she did the right thing. He said if Michael came again or contacted her, we should call immediately. Leaving the station, I felt both relieved and nervous. Relieved because we were not ignoring the problem anymore. Nervous because I knew Michael would not like this. That afternoon, Claire and I went to a small diner. We tried to act normal. She talked about books. I talked about my job. We laughed again. It felt good. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message. You went to the police. My heart dropped. I did not reply. Claire noticed my face. What is it? She asked. I showed her the message. Her hand covered her mouth. He's watching us, she whispered. Fear filled the air. We paid quickly and left. I drove her home. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment. I thought about everything that had happened since that silly game. How a joke turned into something serious. How a stranger became someone I cared about deeply. And then my doorbell rang. My heart skipped. I looked through the peephole. It was Mark. I opened the door. He looked worried. Bro, he said, we need to talk. He came in and sat down. What's going on? I asked. Mark sighed. Ryan told me something strange, he said. What? Mark looked serious. He saw Michael last night at the bar talking about you. My stomach twisted. What did he say? Mark hesitated. He said you're getting in the way and that he'll handle it soon. I clenched my fists. Mark put a hand on my shoulder. Ethan, this is not just drama anymore. This guy is dangerous. I nodded slowly. I know. That night, I could not sleep again. The next day, Claire called me. She said she wanted to go to the park. I hesitated, but she insisted. She said, I don't want to live hiding. I want one normal day. So I agreed. The park was full of people. Families. Kids. Dogs running around. It felt safe. We walked slowly. She held my hand. I held hers back. For a while, we just enjoyed the moment. Then suddenly, I saw Michael. He was standing near the trees, watching. I stopped walking. Claire noticed. She followed my eyes. Her body stiffened. I said quietly, stay calm, let's go somewhere crowded. We turned and walked toward a group of people. But Michael followed. Slowly, like he wanted us to know he was there. My heart beat fast. Then he called her name. Claire. People turned to look. Claire stopped and turned around. What do you want? She said loudly. Michael walked closer. I just want to talk. No, she replied. You had your chances. Michael laughed bitterly. You think this guy will protect you, he said, pointing at me. I stood between them. Leave, I said firmly. Michael looked at me. His eyes were dark. You're making a mistake, he said. Claire raised her voice. I'm not yours anymore. You don't control me. Everyone was staring now. Michael's face twisted with anger. He stepped closer. I felt something rush inside me. Not hate, not violence, but the need to protect. I said, this ends now, walk away. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. But then, something unexpected happened. A security guard came running. Sir, is there a problem here? The guard asked. Michael looked around. Too many eyes. Too many witnesses. He backed away slowly. This is not over, he said quietly. Then he left. Claire collapsed onto a bench, shaking. I sat beside her and held her tightly. You were so brave, I whispered. She cried quietly. After a while, she wiped her tears and looked at me. Thank you for standing with me, she said. I smiled gently. That's what kindness does, I replied. It stands even when it's scared. Days passed. No messages. No sightings. It felt like Michael had disappeared. Life slowly returned to normal. Claire smiled more. I slept better. Hope returned. Then one evening, Claire invited me to her apartment for dinner. She cooked pasta. We laughed. We talked about silly things. It felt like peace. After dinner, we sat on the couch. She looked at me and said softly, Ethan, I don't know where this is going, but I'm glad you came into my life. I smiled. So am I. I reached for her hand. And this time, when I held it, it felt like a promise. Not spoken, but understood. Just then, a loud knock hit the door. My heart jumped. Claire froze. We looked at each other. Another knock. Louder. Claire whispered, who could that be? I stood and walked slowly to the door. I looked through the peephole, and my blood ran cold. Michael was standing there, but he was not smiling. He looked broken, tired, different. I opened the door slightly. What do you want? I asked. He looked at me and said quietly, I just want to apologize. Claire stepped closer behind me. Michael looked at her. I was wrong, he said. I hurt you, and I can't change the past, but I don't want to be that person anymore. Silence filled the space. Claire stared at him. Tears slowly formed in her eyes. She did not speak for a long moment. Then she said, apologies don't erase fear, but they are a start. Michael nodded. I understand, he said. This is the last time I'll come here. And he walked away. Claire leaned against the wall, breathing deeply. I closed the door and turned to her. She looked at me and smiled softly. It's over, she whispered. And in that moment, I realized something. This whole story, it started with a game. A silly truth or dare. But it became a lesson. That kindness can be brave. That empathy can be strong. That love can grow in unexpected places. Claire and I did not rush into anything. We took our time. We talked. We healed. Together. And today, when I look back at that rainy night outside the coffee shop, I smile. Because sometimes, the dare you never wanted becomes the life you always needed.